Sponsoring this week's Fiber Talk podcast is the Embroiderers Guild of America at egausa.org. Each month, EGA offers an expansive roster of creative and educational opportunities for needleworkers around the globe. Starting March 27, EGA members can register for an exciting new virtual lecture, Making My Bed, Creating Imaginative Worlds with 3D Embroidery, with Sally Maver. For more than 45 years, Sally Maver has designed and crafted three-dimensional hand-stitched artwork used in various creative applications, including illustration, doll making, and stop-motion animation. In Making My Bed, attendees will gain a behind-the-scenes look at her innovative process and learn more about her latest book, My Bed, Enchanting Ways to Fall Asleep Around the World, a celebration of diversity that travels the world in needle, thread, and fabric. Just for the month of March, FiberTalk listeners can use the code FiberTalk5 to get a $5 discount for registration to one of EGA's virtual lectures. Interested stitchers should also visit the EGA blog in April to read an interview with Sally Maver and learn more about her inspirations and what to expect when attending Making My Bed on April 16. Thanks to EGA for sponsoring this week's show, and now on to our conversation with Tamara Rubilar of Studio Textile, Montreal. Welcome back. I'm Gary Parr.
And I'm Beth Ellicott.
And you're listening to Fiber Talk, the twice-weekly podcast for the needlework artists. Our artist this week from Montreal, Tamara Rubilar. Tamara, welcome.
Thank you.
Holy smokes, you've been everywhere in the world. Now, all right, so born in Chile, or we say it's not Chile, right?
Chile, Santiago.
Santiago, okay. Grew up in Montreal and studied overseas in Madrid and Paris and London, needlework. You've done it all, but I think that's the cool thing about you is all the influences you must have had as you studied needlework.
Yes, well, I have the chance to go to all these European countries, which actually are pretty like different cultures. So it's very nice to experience all the different ways of the techniques, but also the culture. The way they see or the way they work textile art. And it's great to have all those cultural influences. And that's how I nurture all my personal work.
Yeah, that's really fun because you have so many avenues of input. How did you start out? As you went through school, did you see textiles as your career, or is that something that came later?
Well, yeah, actually my first career, the really first when I was on my 20s, was theater. So I went to Paris to do like theater school, and I lived in Paris there for 5 years. And then I came back to Montreal, but I was not so concerned about textile yet. I discovered in my late 30s. So first, my first influence was my mother. She was very manual. My mother was a florist, and she always taught me to work with my hands and do like delicate work. And she like initiated me to that kind of work of the hand. So after that, I decided to make jewelry. So I created a jewelry line, but that was like a self-taught techniques. So I worked with textiles. I really love to recycle, and that's how I got into the textile art. So I had this jewelry line for about 7 or 8 years. Well, I do some collections and creation, but I had the feeling that I wanted to go further and to really get into techniques, specific techniques of textile. And I didn't know anything about textile in the technical way. So that's when I decided to find a training, and I went to the Montreal Contemporary Center for Textile. And that's where all my roots of the textile came. So in that school, we learned mainly two techniques. We learned weaving and knitting machine, and all the other linked technique for the textile art. So in that, it's like a 3-year training. And after that, you really are considered like a professional, and you can choose your own technique. And we had a pretty small class of hand embroidery. Actually, I think it was around like 10 hours. So really just like, let's say, superficial training. But that was just enough really to like to reveal like a sort of revelation where I said, oh my God, I really love this technique. I want to do this, but not as a career. I didn't thought about doing a career. I was really like more in the exploration, and I just wanted to learn, and to go with my with what I like, what I'm good at. And when I finished the school in 2014, 2040, sorry. That's where I wanted to go to a really like a professional school, professional training for many techniques in art and poetry. So unfortunately, I didn't find anything here in my city or even in Quebec province. So that's when I decided to go to Europe, because for me, Europe, it's really like the roots of this ancient art. And well, I said to myself, okay, let's do like a 3 months trip, like to explore different places, different techniques. And I choose first Paris. So that's where I went to the Le Sage school, which is almost like the most, let's say, famous or popular, because it's with Chanel. It was with the studio of Chanel. And there is really like the haute couture style of embroidery. So I did there like the first level training. I really have to say that this is an amazing experience. If you have the chance to go there, it's really the best of the best you can have as a training, but also all the ambience, the haute couture feeling. And it's also very French, and the design and the way they teach, and the place is beautiful. So that was my first training.
Okay,
I went to London.
Tamara, I want to back you up a little bit. So the Montreal Center then gave you the broad foundation in textile arts that allowed you to at least decide what you liked and didn't like then.
Yeah, that's it. That's where I had to choose one technique, because it's like really like you say, you go like to a restaurant, you see the menu, and you have to choose. You can't eat all the menu. You have to choose one technique. And then it's very hard actually to choose, because all the techniques are beautiful. But really the one who like grabbed my heart was the art embroidery, because there was this particular work of the hands, very tiny, very delicate. And actually I discovered that I had this facility, it was very easy for me to work with my hands. And that also, I didn't know that, because I really discovered that I love to work on tiny and delicate works with the hands. And embroidery is really for me what I love, because also you are like, let's say, you have to be concentrated, And it's also very calming, very like zen, almost like if you're in a bubble, when you do embroidery. And
Right.
I really love that feeling also. So I still do other techniques, but really now I decided to concentrate just on art embroidery.
Do you have an art background? Did you know that you had this artist in you?
Yes, because when I was a child, I did music training, piano for 18 years. So that was my first background. But my parents really loved the arts, and they always wanted me and my brother to, they encourage us to do art, if it's music, painting, anything we wanted. So we were in an ambience like of an artistic sense. So I knew I had this artistic like ability and passion, but I just needed to find which technique, and that took time, in my late 30s. But really, I really found, my path with this art, and it's really like a passion. And so yeah, so when I did this training, I didn't know what I was going to do after, because I didn't plan. I didn't have plans of a career or anything. I just wanted to do what I love.
Okay, I
And
gotta back you up again. All right, so you decide you're going to go to Europe and do some studies. Did you have a plan, or did you just say I'm going to start in Paris and see how it goes?
no, I had a precise plan.
Okay.
Also because those trainings are very expensive, so I
Yes.
needed to plan everything. And so after I went to London to for a 2 weeks training at the Royal School of Needlework, which is also very famous. And this was also amazing, but very different. So the school first is in a castle. So it's magic, it's a magical experience, because all the place, it's magic, the techniques, the art, the historic, uh, it's really like an experience where you have the best of the teaching of the techniques, and it's also like an experience for you. So it's very like precious, not just because it's expensive, because that you're sharing some techniques that are very ancient. And and after doing these techniques, after you decide what am I going to do with all those techniques. And but this was really like my first experience with the art embroidery trainings.
Mm-hmm.
So after London, I went to Spain. Actually, I was living in Spain for 2 years, and as my main language is Spanish, I didn't have any problems, to be there. And Spain is a magical country. I mean, everybody loves Spain. The sun, the music, the tradition, the food. It's really great. And in Spain, I would say that the two most the two techniques are like from the root or the heritage is the gold work for the bullfighters costumes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes.
And other, it's the gold work for the religious processions, like more in Andalusia in the south.
Mm-hmm.
So I went for a training first with the bullfighters in Madrid for 3 weeks, and I saw how they do that, and it's amazing. I couldn't believe that they do everything. And it's really like the studio is in a small Madrid apartment, and the team is there were like about 8 ladies. Some of them they have been there for all their lives, and you see the work, you see the craft, you see the hands, you see the finest work, and all those precious materials. But also you see the, the conditions, how they work, how they rush, how they stress, because it's really a real workshop. So for me, it was an amazing experience.
Are you doing this as a student or as a job?
No, it was more like an internship.
Okay.
Because sometimes they will allow some foreign students to do like an internship, even though they don't have time to show you the stitches. They really don't have time to take care of you. So you need to learn with you need to learn, but not in the best teaching conditions.
Right, I can imagine.
Because you have to, because I was working on a real piece, a real custom order, but I didn't know how to do the stitches. So I really had to learn just by observing them. And sometimes they would look at your work and say, okay, do this, and then this, and then this. And sometimes I was very, it was not easy for me, because I knew that I was not the priority there, and they had to rush, and I had to do the best as I can, even though I don't know the stitches and the technique. But it's very interesting, because when I was there, I really learned that we can learn stitches just by observing, just by imitating what the other embroiderer is doing, because they couldn't show me, take the time. So yeah, it was very rich, like a really nice experience.
But they had you working on actual costumes. You weren't just chasing lunch and getting water and things. You actually
No. I was doing the embroidery, and I could, I asked, because there are teams of they specialize. The embroiderer do only the embroidery. The other one who do like more the assembling, they only do that. So I asked them if I could, see the different steps, and I was allowed also to work, on the shoulders when they put like the very big sleeve all embroidered.
Right.
And very interesting, because this is a totally different work, because it's very, very hard. You have to sew, almost you really have to be like, it's not the delicate sewing and stitches, and it's really another kind of work. But it's really interesting to see that they do all that. They have also some very old ladies that know the technique, and they work at home. And but the main problem there is that there's not so much young people who want to do that. So the transmission is very hard to do. So I hope those techniques, will still be alive, because not so much young people want to do that, because it's so hard, and the conditions are not the best, and the salary is not the best also. But it's really beautiful. It's amazing.
Yeah, that would be sad if they lost that tradition there, because it's
yes.
old.
Oh, yes. Yes. But I hope they're doing something, to preserve the transmission, the knowledge. And that's the problem, with the old techniques and the old workshops, because they have, I think, in all Spain, there's only like 9 Bullfighter costume workshops. So very few.
That's all that's left is 9? Oh.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, and that's got to be very different kind of needlework, because it has to be so sturdy, has to hold up under some pretty severe stresses. So
yes,
very different kind. What do you use for ground cloth? Is it heavy canvas-like material?
Oh, sure. There are many layers, for the jacket. Actually, the jacket has like many layers, and also has like a sort of glue to make the fabric really strong. And this is also a protection if the animal, arms. It's like it has to be like a shell, shell protection. So there are many, many layers and many steps, and it's very long. A jacket or a garment can pass by 8 or 9 steps before the final result. So yeah, it's impressive to see how they do all the working process to get to the final jacket, and how it resists also, to the dust, to the movements they do, to the passing over time. So they had to restore some garments also, and I was able to do that. So they just put back, the beads or the elements that fell or that are not there anymore. So yeah, it's very it's a whole industry, because it's not only the workshop costume. You have all the others, and the Spanish people, they're very attached to their culture. So I hope they'll be able, to preserve all those traditions.
Yeah. That,
Right.
that was what was going through my mind, is when you make one of those jackets, it's got to be an ongoing project, because I'm sure after every use, there's at least some repair that has to be done constantly. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. And also another thing that I was very impressed learning is that, the torero in this kind of costume, in Spanish, if you translate, is called a costume of light.
Yes.
Okay, because they want, and it's made with like gold work or silver metal, and they want to shine. So each torero, he choose the design and he choose the colors, and the main goal for them is to be, they want to shine, they want to be a star.
Right.
So that's also another nice aspect, that we learn, that I didn't know when I learned when I got there.
And those have got to be expensive. So it's got to be quite the investment.
Oh, yes. It's between, I would say, 3,000 and 8,000 euros for
Whoa.
one costume.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah. But I guess they have the money for it.
I guess.
I guess.
Did you get to go to a bullfight at some point?
Yes, I got to one, and well, it's nice, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's not one of my. But you can see that the Spanish people, they're really passionate about it. It's like soccer for them, It's like
Right.
hockey. It's like it's theirs,
Right,
Yeah.
right. It's
Yeah,
a unique
there's
part of their culture.
Yeah, there's a Montreal native, like hockey, yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, sure.
Go back to Paris. What that world fascinates me. See, I'm American. I always want to say the H. You don't say it. Haute couture. That world is fascinating to me, because the pressure to always be on the front edge of fashion has to be just constantly there. Was that a positive experience, or was it a good learning experience?
Yeah, first, what I would say is that going to the school, to Le Sage, I mean, it's also the name, the reputation, the history, the background. So you're aware of that when you go there. That's why it's the experience. It's like so prestigious. And but we don't have we don't have a link or a connection with the studio where they create all those amazing pieces. But it's really about the technique. And actually, there's two main techniques when you learn atlassage. There's all the needle techniques, which are very nice and fine, but you have also the famous tambour beating hook, which is in French called luneville, and that is another technique that we learn, but that technique is very difficult. It takes time, to do the main stitch, which is a chain stitch. And when I got there, I was initiated by someone I knew, just to the first stitch, the basic stitch. And I was so happy that when I got there in my atlassage, I was able to do the stitch, because you have a limited time to create a small piece. And if I didn't know how to do the basic stitch, I would just struggle, because you can spend so long hours just trying to do the basic stitch, because it's very difficult. There's a lot of manipulation. So the thing is that everybody goes there just for work, There's not really like a social time, to relax. You don't go there to relax. You just go there to learn the techniques, because all those techniques are, I would say, the level of difficulty is pretty high, because haute couture is looking for perfection. It has to be perfect. So if the stitch is not perfect, the teacher will undo your stitch, even though you spend 1 hour doing it. So that's that's the way they work things and how they do things. It's really doing the stitch, on the way. You don't have any creative aspect. You just do the model as, centimeter by centimeter, and with no mistakes. So it's pretty yes, it's hard. So
and I watched a video of you doing the tambour stitch, and I've heard of it before, and I've kind of seen it, still images of it, but you almost make it look like, what it made look like to me is like a dance, because you've got your one hand on top and one underneath, and they've got to move together.
Yeah, that's why it's the technique that you will need time, to get comfortable with it. But once you got the technique, it's wonderful. It's really about, the gesture, the movement. It's really like your hands are moving, it's just like a flow, as you say, there's a stitch called a river stitch. And I love it. Really, for me, this technique is like one of my favorites, because of the movement, actually, because it's very repetitive, but the result is so nice, so fine, very delicate. And that's why they use mainly this technique for, the haute couture, for the finest work. And when you see somebody doing it, somebody who's comfortable, it seems very easy. But when you try to do it, oh my God, that's another thing.
Well, that's you did. You made it look so ezy watching your video. I thought, I was like, she makes it look so easy. I should try that. And now hearing you talk, I'm like, okay, no, we'll just skip that technique. Thank you very much.
Oh yes.
And they expect you to be fast too, right?
Yes. Well, this was created actually this was created by the man in I think 8,000 and something in the city of Luneville in France. So actually there's a city called Luneville where this technique was invented. And it was meant to put the sequins and the beads faster than with the needle. So when normally you can work sequins, when you want to do a line of sequins, you can do it with the needle or with the tambour hook. And the tambour hook you can do it faster. Well, you have to have the technique, but yes, it was meant to go faster. And actually, when this was created, they initiated this technique in all the workshops in France, and there were some ladies specialized in only needlework, and the other only in the hook. So, and I know that they were called like the needle hook. They were called the hookers, and the other they were called like let's say the handers, because they work only with the needle and the hand, and there was like a concurrency between them, you know. But it's really nice to do the both techniques, because you can have all the variety of ways of working. So that's very interesting for me.
So you have the hookers and the handers, huh?
Yes.
Oh, that's fun. So I'm always curious about the tools. When you have a tambour hook, is it like, this is my hook and you get used to it and it has its own characteristics and you guard that with your life, or do you just pick up any hook and it doesn't matter?
No, usually the hook, because it's so special, it's like yours, you know.
Yeah.
It's like you get, because each hook, I don't know, but when I take like a new hook or someone else's hook, it's not the same sensation.
Yeah.
So it's good to have yours. It's like a personal tool where you get used to it. And actually, I have an anecdote with that, is that I work, you know, for all my equipment. I work with a craftsman who is he does the woodwork. So he does for me like stilettos, the scroll frames, and he creates my hooks with the wood, and he works also with the lace makers. So he make all the tools, and he received from a lady, not from Montreal, from another city, like very old, like I think it's a group of hooks of tambour beading, and very old, very small, in wood and plastic. And this lady, her mother, she was a professional embroiderer in the 30s, and she used to have all these hooks, and she worked for fashion, for weddings, and she has a workshop and everything. And you can see that in the wood hooks, you can see how it's used, you know, how the hands have been holding the hook for so many times.
Yeah.
And that's how, you know, a hook is something very, very personal. And when you get used to one, it's like yours, you know, you won't use another one. So it's very nice. It's like getting attached, you know, to having an attachment to your tools, because the tools are beautiful also. It's another aspect of what I love in embroidery, is working with beautiful tools and beautiful materials. And that's a part of what I love in this work, is that, you know, everything, it's like a world of beauty, you know, creating beauty, but you also have beautiful materials. It can be the threads, it can be the fabric, it can be, you know, any kind of embroidery supplies you have to work with, and you have also the tools. So it's really nice, you know, to be surrounded by all those beautiful elements.
Yeah. Now, religious gold work in Sevilla, is that how we say it?
Yes. So that was another training I did. It was like 5 days training, And actually, there's almost nobody teaching that technique because there are many workshops in the south of Spain, but they're very protective of their technique.
Oh.
And they're very protective when they see foreign students coming and wanting to learn that technique. So it's like when you want to learn that technique, you go to a workshop, you learn, you be an apprentice, but you have to stay to work there. And usually you stay for almost all your life. That's the very traditional way of seeing this kind of craft.
Uh-huh.
So I could find a teacher, and she's a lady. She has a workshop in her own house in Sevilla, and that was the most difficult training I ever had in all my trainings. So this technique is really complicated, but it's really amazing. It's like hours and hours of work, and the work is so tiny. I think you can almost get blind when you do that kind of work, because it's so small what you have, and you work with of course metal supplies and gold threads. So all the materials are very, very precious, and there are many steps. So I did like a flower, like let's say a 5-inch flower, and but I mean I had to work like at least 2 hours on the evening to complete the work. So I would say I did this flower like 5 inches was like, let's say, between 40 and 50 hours of work.
Oh my!
But again, it's it's a tradition, and there Anna, her name is Anna. She was telling me about her story, how she started, how she works, and amazing experience. And also, I mean, you're in Sevilla, it's so warm. And after you have the, because the studio is in a house, so you have the grandmother coming to say hello. Do you want to take a beer, or do you want some tapa?
Yeah.
So that was an amazing experience, because they're so joyful. Those people, they're really warm people, and I really loved that experience. Although when you do all those trainings, you have no time for tourism. You have no time to go and visit the city, because you have to work and finish your piece. So there's a very limited time, when you take a break, and I just went, to see around. But it's almost impossible to mix, a training with a sightseeing tour of the city, right? Because also you are exhausted. It's yeah, because it's all those techniques are very fine and very demanding. So it's a lot of work, but the experience is so worth it.
So tired you just want to go to bed.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, and to rest your eyes, I would think your eyes would be so tired.
Yeah, also that's another aspect. And it's very rare that you can work with a magnifier. Normally you have to just, to take just your eyes. But in my work at the studio, when I work so tiny stitches, I use a magnifier, because my eyes, my vision has been decreasing a little bit. Yeah, because there's the effort,
right,
effort is very, and for me it's a almost each day effort for the eyes. So I try, to take care of my eyes.
Yeah, join the club on the deteriorating eyes. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So at what point do you say, all right, enough of this, I've got to start my own career, and you go back to Montreal? Did you just have a point where, all right, I've learned enough, I feel competent enough that I can start my own business? Or how did you go about that?
Yeah, so after this 3 month trip of training, I came back, and well, it took like 1 year for me to really, take the decision, because I was working at home. So it took like 1 year to say, okay, I want to get out of my house and have the studio, like not in the house, but in another place. So I needed to separate also the space of work and my space at home. It was very important for me, because the problem is that when you have your workshop at home, sometimes the limit is very hard to do.
Yep.
So I would work on the evenings, and I would never separate the work from my, let's say, my evening where I need to relax. So that's why I wanted to really have a different place, and also because I was accumulating so much material and equipment, so I needed a bigger space. So
Can't go
so
to bed
I
because
I
it's
found
piled up with
this
material.
place.
Yeah.
Oh no, yeah, that's the problem. So I found this very nice space, and yes, so here, for me it's like going to the office, and I like it, because uh, uh, it's like when I finish my day, it's finished. I won't be working late, or you know so I have a lot of freedom, because I can do whatever I want. I can work the hours I want. And sometimes also I do like my computer work, emails at home, and I come here, but just for the art. And I try, I have set up my studio as a place where I'm surrounded by beautiful things. I have books. I did like inspiration wall where I put samples. I put also beautiful materials that I buy when I go to Europe. And it's for me, it's really like my dream place, because it was my dream to have my own studio, and also it was my dream to be able to make a living of this art. And now it's, for me it's been like 4 years now, and I'm doing this full time. It's not always easy, because there's also the bills to pay, but it's I mean, it's for me, it's a dream, because I love what I do, and
Yep.
I can create. I can also teach to others those techniques, and it's really a personal place. And for me, as an artist, my main mission as an artist, as an embroiderer, is to make people dream, and it's to how can I contribute with some beauty to this world. That's why it's very important for me when I work. The aesthetic aspect is very important. I really love to work with with beautiful and precious materials, and to do designs that will make people have like an emotion.
All right, so we got to learn now that we know that your mother was a florist. It makes more sense with all the flower designs that you do. Tell about that aspect of your creativity. Those the flowers you do are just really beautiful.
Well, I really love the flowers in general. So I started to experiment first with fabrics to create like flower shapes, and then I started to do like different kind of flowers, but just with like sewing techniques and assemblage and folding. And so this was my like let's say, my first step getting into flowers. And when I was in Madrid, I met like a friend of mine talked to me about friends of them that were flower makers. They actually have a workshop where they give some private classes, and they work really like the millenary traditional way of doing creating flowers, you know, with the iron balls and with the dyeing. So I took a training, like a 3 days training, to learn the basics of this beautiful technique, and that's how I started to do, like, let's say, more refined flowers. Really, like, the technique of the flower needs like different steps, and it's really like working with very fine fabrics. So normally you take natural fabric, like can be silk, cotton, linen, and really you do from A to Z. That means that you have to pattern first the petals, decide how much petals, decide the shape of the petals you're going to do, and then you cut it, and then you mold it with the iron balls, and after you make the assemblage you take like a stem, and it's really like all like really fine techniques. Actually, I saw sometimes my mother doing a few of the techniques, like rubbing the tape around the stem, and it's again, it's not an easy technique, but it seems that I really like difficult techniques because it's always like a challenge, you know, to create something that is very demanding, where you need to manipulate, you need to shape, and you need also to really be careful with all the finishing details, which makes that your product is really professional and high quality. So when I learned this technique in Madrid, I just really fell in love with that, because the result is so amazing, so beautiful. And I mean, you know, the flower is like a theme that is so universal, it's timeless, and that's how I decided to buy all the equipment I needed, and I started like doing a small collection, and I checked also if someone was doing or teaching this technique in Montreal, but I didn't find anybody. So that's how I started to do the flowers, and sometimes I'm just navigating between, you know, embroidery projects and more like flowers or embellishment projects, and there is always one, like it's like periods, you know. Now I'm more like on embroidery projects, so I'm not doing flowers at all, but the next step will be to get back to the flowers. But it's all about, you know, creating beautiful objects, beautiful pieces, and it's not just creating, it's like the whole process, which is really beautiful. It gives me so much joy, you know. When I do that, I can forget about everything else, and it's just, you know, creating, shaping, working with the hands, manipulating. That is what fascinates me.
Yeah. It sounds like over the course of a year at your studio, there's always something new and different going on. It's not just the same old thing every day. You've always got something fresh going.
Yeah, actually, I don't have a notion of what is a routine, you know, because I'm always doing something different, and there's always some things to do, and usually I'm not working on just one project at a time. I work on many projects, because I like to be like diversified in the projects, and sometimes you're more inspired in one piece than another. So, but what is sometimes more difficult is just to start a project, to say, okay, what do you want? What do I want to do now? What is my inspiration? What material I want to use? So that depends of, I would say, of my inspiration of the moment. And sometimes I have also ideas that I know that it's going to be like a huge project, and I don't feel I'm ready for that. But I have a project in mind for a few years now, is that I want to create my own supplies. But that for me is a really huge project, because I would need a lot of researching, a lot of experimentation, and I guess I will need a grant to do that also. But I really want to get to that point where I'm able to create my own supplies and to experiment. I like to use materials, but sometimes not on their usual way. I like, sometimes to, for example, let's say as an example, you take sequins and you fold it, or you burn it, and just, to transform the material to something else, doing something more personal with it, and then you're able to work with it. It's always about how to get the materials to do to transmit your idea, the idea you have in mind, the inspiration. And I have a lot of materials, but sometimes I like to search for like different materials. For example, I took a training on the last spring with gold leaf technique, which is actually not from the textile world, but it was really nice. And now I'm seeing how can I add this technique to my own work, even if it's not meant to be, mixed. But I like to mix techniques, and to do this research work, and to go further to create new things, or I really like to explore, because that's where I get my, let's say, it's about a personal challenge. How can I not just do nice things, and but how can you take your work into another step?
Yeah.
So it sounds like you try to always take new classes, learn new techniques. Is that true?
Yes, it's true. Yeah.
So do you take take classes in a lot of different techniques? That it doesn't necessarily need to be needlework. So what sort of things interest you?
Well, if I see that this new technique can be integrated in my work, I will find interest in learning it. So the main aspect for me is to continue to not stopping learning, and also it's about enriching my knowledge of these techniques to enrich also my work.
In terms of your design work, then you don't have any mental boundaries that say, all right, this is what I do and this is how I do it. You're always looking to expand.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't see my work as, let's say, I don't give limits to what I do. It's really about my interest in learning, because I consider that we can learn, until the end of our lives. There's no end to what we can learn. And it's also because learning puts you in a state of openness and of exploring new horizons. So I like this way of perceiving, learning and trainings, and it's like expanding, as you said.
Well, all right, Tamara, this is, boy, what a fascinating journey you've had. And to end up with your own studio and be able to do your own thing is just a huge, huge accomplishment. So congratulations, and thanks for making time to talk to us.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk and to share my passion. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks to Tamara, and thanks to everyone for listening.